They took Esmeralda's barn over because it was upper class. They weren't gamblers, neither of them. Ronnie just thought it was stupid for you to go on a table with £40 and lose it. And he used to call them dopey, mummy's boys. Of all the people to call people mummy's boys, Ronnie Kray, but a different mummy boy. They're terrified to go back and tell their mother and father that they've just lost £500. And he said, but they've lost it to me, laughing. When they were arrested in 1965, Violet was in a terrible flat. Typical mother, crying and saying, why have they been arrested? Someone said they were demanding money. She said, well, why would they demand money? They've got plenty of money, more money than anybody round here. So that's another lie, isn't it? There was such a day in Valence Road, and there's all those lovely pictures of them shaking hands. The neighbours came out. See, everybody in the East End, all the neighbours, what we call the normal East Enders, they were so happy that they was acquitted. Because again, they thought, one to the Krays, nil to the law. One of the very few times I've seen Ronnie Kray, what I call happy, really happy, really smiling. He very rarely smiled. He had this little sort of sardonic grin that went up the side. He was the happiest probably that I've seen him, was that day. I was in the house in Valence Road on the morning of the wedding, and they had the most horrific argument, the twins, Ronnie and Reggie. And in the end, he said, well, I'm not going to the bloody wedding. And Reggie said, well, you've got to come to the wedding. You know, you're my best man. Well, if you're not coming, I can't get married, which probably would have pleased Ronnie Kray. He was very jealous of women that liked Reggie because he always thought a woman would come and take him away. And when it did happen, that's why he didn't like Frances. He really did not want that wedding to happen. But then he thought to himself, well, I better go. There'd be all the attention and everybody there, all the photographs. I don't think she was happy that day. I think there was a lot of pressure from her parents, obviously not to get married. They certainly didn't want Reggie Kray as a son-in-law. He couldn't make love to her. We knew Ronnie was totally gay. But Reggie, you know, I heard a couple of girlfriends that he had, that he actually slept with, but I don't think it was to his pleasure. Ronnie was always on his case to leave and spend more time with him. I heard him say many times, I don't know what you got married for, what you're married for. You know, you don't care about the business. I have to do everything. In 1966, his mental health was deteriorating because he wasn't getting the right treatment. He could go off into these rages that you really think he could kill everybody, Reggie included. We were sitting in the kitchen, Violet and me, and she said, there's lots of people saying things are happening around the East End about Ronnie. People are very jealous. They're always talking about my twins, always saying that, you know, it's because they're successful or their sons are not successful, which I think is a lot of jealousy. But everybody in the East End knew it was Ronnie Kray. When I saw Reggie, a few days after Frances had committed suicide, he was in a terrible state. I went round to Valence Road. He came down, and I saw him crying. And all you could say was, I'm very sorry, Reg. She was a lovely girl, because she didn't say anything else. I couldn't believe that I'm looking at Reggie Kray crying like this. And that's the only time I ever saw him cry. I never heard Violet blame Reggie of anything to do with Frances. I think she just blamed it on Frances's state of mind and thought that Reggie was a good husband. This is all I ever heard from Violet. She wouldn't hear no wrong about either of them. Ronnie would ridicule him. Wasn't giving him any consolation or put his arms around his brother and say, never mind. Ronnie's screaming at him after his wife's death. This is all to a man who's just sitting there crying, drunk. Poor Violet had to go to the Old Bailey with the shirts, the day before for them to put on in the morning. They had to be dressed better than anybody else in the court, the barristers included. The Cornell murder, everybody was talking about, well, it's the barmaid that will be able to recognise Ronnie. Nobody else is going to say it was Ronnie Kray. The day that she turned up, she was nice, dressed nice, good looking, and I heard her speak. I remember Chris Lambriano going, as much as to say, we're finished. Poor Violet. She was just in total shock. She couldn't believe it. Why did all those people come to and talk bad about them? Those people have sat at my table. They've had tea in my house. I talked to their mothers. I asked them about their wives and children. Why were they all saying bad things? They're calling them murderers. And that's when I thought, I can't pretend anymore. I said, but Violet, they did commit murder. It sounds terrible because they all wanted to do everything for her when the twins were here. I went to Parkhurst with her once and she took the apple pie. I said, you can't give that to Reggie. No, she said, that's for the gods. Everybody likes my apple pie. I said, how do you know you can give it to the guard? Well, I'll give it to them as we go in. That's for your tea. Because in her mind, anything she gave the guards, they would be nicer to her son. Well, I first noticed in about 1981 that she was so tired, lost weight, and very, very drawn. She'd already been diagnosed then, but she told nobody, not even the old man. She didn't tell her husband about the cancer.
Violet Kray died the day before her 73rd birthday, still fighting to get parole for her notorious twins, the gangsters who were sentenced to 30 years each in 1969 for murder.
God. The funeral at Chingford, the little church, is right opposite the graveyard. There was a crowd outside, lots of Chingford people that had heard what was happening and wanted to see the twins.
The kindness I can't believe. I just can't believe it. It amazed me. But down at Reeves, the way people behaved, in fact, everybody.
Then came Reggie, also handcuffed from the maximum security wing at Parkhurst.
Neither of them cried at the mother's funeral. They were too concerned with the day. They weren't going to get out of a van and cry in front of all these crowds.
Meanwhile, an even bigger crowd rushed to the graveside service for Vi. There were more flowers from film stars, underworld figures, and an ex-great train robber or two. She called the Kray twins, Ronnie and Reggie, my lovely boys, and faithfully visited them all over the country.
But the sad part about that was they weren't allowed to go to the grave. You know, from the church they were taken, again, out the back door, running.
I think Ronnie was quite happy in Broadmoor. In his own way, he sort of ruled Broadmoor. You know, he was the top man there. He was much respected there. He was always incredibly smart, beautifully turned out.
When he walked in, it flipped me back all those years because dress-wise, he had a beautiful Italian suit, navy suit, a white silk shirt, an Italian silk tie, beautiful handkerchief, the gold cufflinks with double R written on them, the gold watch, on cigarettes, chain smoked in that way he did. You know, like Noel Coward. I said, you're smoking like Noel Coward. Why are you holding the cigarette down there? He said, you nosy.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly, moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section.